Hi, my name is Mark Chalmers, and I'm a librarian in the College of Engineering and Applied Science Library. Thank you for watching our plagiarism prevention video series. In this video, you will learn what constitutes plagiarism at the University of Cincinnati and the consequences of plagiarizing. For an introduction to plagiarism and an overview of reasons that it may occur, please watch our previous video on the context of plagiarism. If you do some searching online, you're going to find many different definitions of plagiarism. They likely vary slightly from definition to definition, which can be confusing. So which one should you use? Well, as a student at the University of Cincinnati, the definition of plagiarism that you should familiarize yourself with is the one in the UC Student Code of Conduct. A link to the Student Code of Conduct is available online and is also provided in the description for your convenience. In this video, we are going to review the definition of plagiarism from the UC Student Code of Conduct, go over examples of the various kinds of plagiarism, and review the consequences of plagiarizing. So let's start with the UC Student Code of Conduct. The definition of plagiarism is on page 10 and has 4 parts, each defining a different type of plagiarism. So let's start with part 1. The first definition of plagiarism is submitting another's published or unpublished work in whole, in part, or in paraphrase as one's own without fully and properly crediting the author with footnotes, quotation marks, citations, or bibliographic references. So what is the important thing to understand from this definition? When drawing inspiration from another author's work, you must fully credit them. When submitting work for a class, failure to cite and properly reference any sources that informed your work constitutes plagiarism at the University of Cincinnati. This is the case even if you summarize or paraphrase that source. Remember that if a source had an impact on your thinking and writing, be safe and cite it. We will learn more about what it means to cite and properly reference in the next module, Keys to Avoiding Unintentional Plagiarism. Let's look now at the second type of plagiarism covered in the definition. Submitting as one's own original work material obtained from an individual, agency, or the internet without reference to the person, agency, or web page as the source of the material. Like the first type of plagiarism, this one focuses on properly referencing the source of any work that you use. But a key element of this definition is that sources, such as web pages, sometimes do not have clear and obvious authors. It is a common misconception that if an author is not obvious, then you do not need to cite the source. Remember, if the work you are submitting was informed by another source, make sure you give proper reference to that source so that you avoid plagiarism. As an example, say you are writing a paper and you use some information from a website on the internet. You only take a paragraph from the website and you change a few words here and there. This constitutes plagiarism if you don't make any reference to the web page where you got that information. Take a second and make sure you understand this example. Feel free to pause or rewind the video. Great. Let's move on to the third type of plagiarism described in the Student Code of Conduct. The third definition is submitting as one's own original work, material that has been produced through unacknowledged collaboration with others without release in writing from collaborators. So this third type of plagiarism applies to work that was produced through collaboration. If you have classmates or friends who help you with your schoolwork, This collaboration needs to be acknowledged, or else it constitutes plagiarism. As an example, let's say your class involves a group project. You all work together and present the results of your project using PowerPoint. You put the name of all the group members on the title slide. Is this plagiarism? Right. This is not plagiarism because working together in a group was allowed and all collaborators were acknowledged. The theme throughout these types of plagiarism is that as a student here at UC, you are expected to produce original work and acknowledge the impact of others' work on anything you submit as your own. Let's now look at the final type of plagiarism described in the UC Student Code of Conduct. Submitting one's own previously written, oral, or creative work without modification and instructor permission. This one is interesting because we're no longer focusing on the impact of others' work on your own, but rather on submitting your own previous work without any modification or permission from your instructor. This specific form of plagiarism is typically called self-plagiarism. Let's demonstrate through an example. Let's say you wrote a paper on reality television for your English class, but you're now taking a media research class and you're still interested in this topic. You talk to your media research instructor and see if it's okay to use your earlier paper as a basis for your upcoming paper because you want to expand on your work and adapt it to your current class. Is this an acceptable way to prevent self-plagiarism? Right. Talking to your instructor is the safest thing to do if you are worried about potentially self-plagiarizing. In this example, you will build on your earlier research and writing, meet the requirements of the current class, and demonstrate new knowledge. It is important to avoid plagiarizing as the consequences may be severe and can extend beyond UC. Policies and enforcement vary from college to college and sometimes from department to department. But here is an example policy of what you may expect to see if caught plagiarizing. So for a first offense, you may receive 0 credit on the assignment, or you may not be allowed to make up the work. On a second offense, a student may also again receive a 0 on the assignment and possibly the deduction of an entire letter grade for the course, and a student may or may not have the option to make up the work. A third offense could result in a F for the course, and again not be allowed to make up the work. Additional offenses could result where students possibly face dismissal from the college and or other sanctions. Now these consequences are pretty harsh, right? But that's because here at the University of Cincinnati, we take plagiarism very seriously. These are simply consequences for your scholarly pursuits here at UC, but these consequences can extend beyond. For example, plagiarism can result in the withdrawal of a submitted thesis, dissertation, or even journal article. And this can seriously damage scholarly reputation, which could in turn damage graduate school prospects or future scholarly goals. So we hope that this video helps elucidate the concept of plagiarism and demonstrates the seriousness of academic integrity. Please watch the next video, Keys to Avoiding Unintentional Plagiarism, to learn how to avoid accidental or unintentional plagiarism. Always remember that there are resources to help you, such as your instructor, the Academic Writing Center, and your librarians. Thank you for watching.